It is my pleasure to introduce the person who's going to introduce our keynote speaker. She is our District 3 Commissioner, and among the people who are in Kitsap, she is perhaps the most passionate about FIFA World Cup 2026. Okay, well, let's just welcome her to stage, Katie Walters.
So, as you can tell, I'm so delighted. I can just fly all over the place. But Joe is right, because I am really excited about this opportunity for Kitsap, and just thank you. It's so much fun seeing all of you here today, because I'm excited for all of us to learn about some of the opportunities on the horizon for Kitsap County. None more thrilling than what the events that are going to occur in June and July of 2026. With the Seattle region serving as host city for the Seattle FIFA World Cup 2026. We can expect an estimated 750,000 fans from around the world to arrive, bringing a wave of energy, excitement, and opportunity, small businesses, right to our doorstep. So to help us dive into what this means for our residents and businesses, I'm honored to introduce our keynote speaker today, Leo Flor, Chief Legacy Officer for the Seattle FIFA World Cup 2026. Leo's role is all about ensuring that the impact of the World Cup extends far beyond the matches themselves, creating long-term benefits for our communities and businesses, using the World Cup's moment of global focus to make lasting progress on our local priorities. Leo previously served as the director of King County's Department of Community Health and Services, overseeing the county's work of behavioral health, affordable housing, and human services for seniors, veterans, youth, and more. During the COVID pandemic, Leo led the creation and operations of the county's isolation and quarantine system and conversion of hotels into shelters and housing. Leo has also served local veterans as a legal aid attorney at Northwest Justice Project, and he started his career with 8+ years as a U.S. Army infantry officer, including a year as a platoon leader in Iraq and 15 months as a company commander in Afghanistan. Leo, thank you for your service. Leo is a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point and holds law and master's degrees from the University of Washington. Leo brings, go Cougs, that's the wrong line.
That's the right one.
That's right, I'm a Coug and I'm also a Husky, so that's all good. And a Zag, so. Leo brings with him a deep passion for community engagement and strategic leadership, making him the perfect person to highlight how Kitsap can seize this incredible opportunity, preparing to welcome the world, unlocking new economic potential, and ensuring that our residents and businesses are poised to thrive during and after this historic event. Please join me in giving Leo a warm welcome.
So thank you, Commissioner. And a couple initial observations. One is it is not completely with ease that an Army guy walks into a Navy town like this to give a presentation. It's also not completely with ease that you unfurl a scarf that says Seattle on it when you come to Bremerton, but I do want to emphasize that it is all in the spirit. We have a statewide responsibility, a regional responsibility in planning for this event, and so I couldn't be more pleased to be here. And then as the Commissioner mentioned, a lot of my recent experience in talking to crowds like this usually goes with like citing shelters or opening behavioral health facilities, and so this is absolutely the best welcome I've ever gotten in opening conversation. Who here can tell me in which nation the term soccer, David, you can't answer this, the term soccer originated? England! Okay, so this is going to be like one of those things where we're giving away swag as we go here, so you get a scarf and a water bottle. And then one of the things I'm going to emphasize today is that this is the largest version of the World Cup that has ever happened, and the World Cup is already the largest sporting event in the world. How many total matches will be played in this World Cup? 36. Less than 120, more than 64. Not how many nations will play, but how many matches will occur.
82.
84.
96.
98.
58.
Who said 98? I feel like there's some table 4 favoritism going on here, so I'm going to have to 98. So it's actually not 98, but I wasn't going to make us wait all the way until somebody said 104, and so 98 is going to have to be close enough. That's how Army people buy goodwill when they come to a Navy town. So presentation. All right. The World Cup is the largest sporting event in the world, and this will be the largest sporting event or tournament in the history of the world, as best we can tell. Maybe the dinosaurs did something bigger, but we're not sure. We've got a lot of responsibility that comes from that, and it's not just about soccer. This is about how do we use this moment, this number of people, the amount of money, the amount of eyeballs that are going to be on our region to make progress in a way that doesn't just advance soccer, although soccer's cool, but that makes our entire community stronger for having had the experience of hosting the tournament. I'll talk about some of the facts there that get us there. And then when we take a look at the size of the event, the number of people that are going to be paying attention, how do we provide you all with the information you need to, as the commissioner said, take advantage of this opportunity, really grab it, and hopefully do it in a way that not only sort of at the high level or strategic level, advances the interests of the region, but helps particular specific businesses be more successful. And one of the things that we're working against, and I think it's important to acknowledge this, is that the history of mega events, the history of large events like this is not necessarily littered with success for local communities. In fact, sometimes these events can be extractive of local communities. And so why I'm so excited about this job is we have put it to ourselves that our mission is to prove that wrong, to see what we can do to make these additive to the community so that it's not just about traffic, but it's also about the way that kids can feel inspired, the way that our communities can come together, and the way that, again, businesses can profit, because I think that's important from having this many people here. So I mentioned that it's the largest event. I'm trying to figure out how to link this thing. A couple of numbers, some of them on the slide, some of them not. We do expect at least 750,000 people will come visit. Who knows what the most watched TV show or event is in the United States?
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. How many people will watch the Super Bowl internationally, including the United States? 175 million is the best estimate we've seen. How many people watched the least watched match in the last World Cup? 200 million. Least watched. How many people watched the most watched match in the last World Cup?
16 billion.
Not 16 billion. 1.5 billion people watched the most watched match. 5 billion people watched at least one of the matches. And if you know how many people there are on Earth, 5 billion is more than half of us. So more than half of the human beings on Earth tuned into at least part of one of the World Cup matches. When you take a look at what we're estimating this time around, we're estimating a global audience, including repeat viewers, of about 19 billion people tuning in to watch World Cup matches. The scale of this thing is bigger than anything that we have certainly hosted in this part of the world anytime recently. When we talk about the number of people who will travel, 750,000 to this region, and that's an estimate, and we are on the low end of the estimates that other cities are putting out. But across the United States, we're estimating about 6 million people visiting our country. You can see that at the last World Cup, about 50% of the fans came from elsewhere. And the reason I want to emphasize that is, at least for folks who were living really close to the stadiums when we had the Major League Baseball All-Star game, for example, one of the issues that really came up with that was whether or not people were actually benefiting locally from that event. And there are a couple of things that are just going to be different here. So one is the size that we've already talked about, the level of viewership, and also the number of people who will visit. But the duration of this event. We're going to have 104 matches. We'll have 6 here in Seattle. It'll happen over about, or in the state. It'll happen over about 3.5 weeks. And so the patterns, you've got a lot of people traveling here. They're going to be staying here. They're going to be staying here longer than one day. None of the games happen on consecutive days. And so I can't tell you exactly what all the behaviors will be for folks who are visiting, but it's not going to be like a Taylor Swift concert where people sort of show up, have the event, and leave. We expect that we're going to have a lot of folks coming, staying, certainly going to matches or going to local events that are about the matches, but they're going to have a lot of free time. And I think one of the opportunities that I really want to emphasize here is it's the people who are able to help folks understand what to do with their free time that I think are going to have a lot of opportunities. And then the thing that makes me more nervous than anything else is 600 days away. So this is a calendar. I've done 2 things here. One is you can see where all the Seattle matches are, and the second thing is that you can see where all the Vancouver matches are. We are in a sort of close grouping with Vancouver, BC in terms of they'll have another 7 matches, and so we do also think that we'll see a lot of traffic between the 2 cities, and that there'll be opportunity even here and across Washington with folks who are going to want to show up in Vancouver as well. Something that I think is particularly cool, we have the U.S. men's national team guaranteed to come to Seattle on June 19th of 2026, which is Juneteenth. So again, as we talk about how many just eyeballs are going to be on our communities on a uniquely American holiday, the day that the only U.S. men's national team is playing, they will be in Seattle. We think that's going to be a huge deal. We think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to it, and that's a sort of very specific example of a way to celebrate our community in a particular way that we think is going to be a really important sort of cultural moment, but there's also going to be a lot of opportunity connected to that. Pride is the same thing. So we're one of 4 U.S. cities that's going to host a match right before the sort of typical Pride festivities, and if anybody watched the World Cup in 2022, you'll know that some of the conversation there was whether or not you could wear a rainbow armband in a stadium in Qatar. We're just going to have a totally different experience here. Yeah. We're going to celebrate our whole community, and Pride is going to be part of that, and I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of rainbow everything, and that's just going to be part of the experience, and we're looking forward to it. So if you wanted to see the whole schedule, you could use that QR code, although I think the way that the text distorted itself, it probably impeded that, so I'll make sure that we have a better version of the slides.
It works.
Awesome. The only thing I want to point out here is there are statewide venues. None of them are on the peninsula, but there are statewide venues. The games, again, will happen in Seattle and Vancouver, BC. We'll have training camps and base camps for the teams in different parts of the state. And again, a lot of people are going to be traveling back and forth. And the thing to note about this is when we talk about team base camps in particular, so say the Argentinian national team gets assigned to the base camp in Spokane, they're going to show up a month ahead of time. And they tend to travel with thousands of people, both fans and staff. So the event itself is longer than a typical event, and the sort of pre-event in particular is even longer than that. So as we talk about benefit, one of the ways that we're really trying to increase benefit to local businesses is both geographically, spatially, how do we get more of the community to be involved, but also temporally, how do we extend the period of benefit. And I think that's something I wanted to leave you all with, because I think there's a lot of fertile ground in there. The people who have things going on 2 weeks before the first game, before the first match, I think are going to have an opportunity to benefit from that. So, getting into some of the ways to forecast opportunities, because I think one of the things we want to do is make sure we have time for questions or comments here. How are people going to get around? So, I don't need to tell you this, but when you take a look at a map of Seattle, if you are not from the area, you don't know what those little fake lines that you can't even see on Apple Maps there are that connect the peninsula to Seattle. You might think that those are like migratory routes for whales or something like that, but they are ferry routes. I think that there is a tremendous opportunity for the people in this room to let folks, whether they're from Poland or Uruguay or Cameroon or wherever, whatever nations get assigned here. So the best way to get to a game is not going to be sitting on I-5 in traffic. The best way to get to a game is going to be sitting on a ferry in the middle of the glorious Pacific Northwest summer and docking about a quarter mile from the stadium and walking there. You're not gonna have to pay for parking, you're not gonna get stuck on I-5. And with the number of points of connection that come back to the peninsula, I think that there is going to be a huge opportunity. We want to support you the way that we can, but I think one of the most important things that we can provide is just the information, and when you'll know the information that will allow you to do that kind of creative marketing that I hope has the whole peninsula filled with soccer fans realizing that this is a much better way to travel to a match than it is to, there's somebody in Kent here, but be in a hotel in Kent and then sit on the highway for 5 hours. A couple of things, so if information is the key commodity that I can offer here, some of the timing. One thing is that we have just announced where our Fan Fest will be, and so that's the big sort of image that you see when you watch soccer games on TV, and they usually cut to some famous location within a city, and you see thousands of people sitting there and cheering because something just happened, or they're dejected because something bad just happened. So we'll hold that at Seattle Center. We estimate that will be about 30,000 people a day coming just to the Seattle Center to watch matches, in addition to the 65,000 folks who will come to the stadium. We'll also be soon announcing 9 official fan zones across the state. So I mentioned that one of our responsibilities is to make sure that this is not just a Seattle event, but it is a Washington event. So we're going to be working with cities, and we're looking at the 9 most populous counties right now. And I can't for sure say where these will all end up being, but the idea is to get the distribution across the state for these sponsored events. And so fan zones will be sort of fan fests, maybe a little bit smaller, but it depends on the way that the city or the county that hosts them wants to host them. We'll be unveiling those by the end of the year now, I can say. We'll know everything else in 2025, and the piece of information that I think all of you should be paying particular attention to is which teams are going to come here, which nations will be assigned to us. That information, unfortunately, is not going to be available until the draw, which will be in December of 2025, about 6 or 7 months before the event itself starts. But that's going to be the piece of information that I think unlocks a lot of the opportunities that you all will have to really maximize the event. The only thing you really get out of this is I don't work for FIFA. I give out a lot of stuff that says FIFA on it, but we actually work, we're a 7-person nonprofit here in Washington. Our job is to do a lot of the local planning. We coordinate with FIFA, who will run the tournament, and we're also not a government. You've got several government leaders here who are, but the reason I point this out is depending on the type of opportunity or change that you're seeking to make in order to take advantage of the event, you should know who to talk to. So if you want to change, the time at which all alcohol serving establishments must close, I'm not the person, although I think some of those folks might be in the room. But if you wanted to talk about how you could make sure that your business is available and listed on our website, on the app that we're putting together that we're going to be pushing to all of the hundreds of thousands of people who will come here, then I am the right person to connect you to the right folks in our organization, and we'll be working really closely with the organizations here in Kitsap who are designed to sort of create that information. So I think I'm in the right room for that conversation. Okay, so one way to say everything I just said a lot shorter, there's stuff that FIFA will do, and I don't want to pretend I got a ton of control over that. So FIFA's the one who's going to decide what commercials are going on as the TV pans in and out of actual broadcasted games. They're the ones who take over the stadium and run the tournament. There are things that we will do formally, and so the Fan Fest I mentioned is an example of that. The fan zones that I mentioned are an example of that. And I do anticipate that there'll be a fan zone, in this area generally. We're excited to specifically announce where that will be. And we'll be able, at the LOC, the local organizing committee, to be the right point of contact to integrate opportunities into that. But it's the local maximization where I think the most opportunity is. So if we learned, for example, that the Ukrainian national team was going to draw and be assigned here, what is the ability to get creative and project into Ukraine in language advertising or marketing, the opportunity that would be available to, again, stay in Bremerton, take a boat into the match, take a boat back out of the match, and have an experience that might be much better than sitting in a car and having to park a mile away and paying $100 for parking and it taking 4 hours to get there from your hotel. It's going to be those opportunities that we want to assist with, but I think it's going to be the creativity, the ingenuity, the folks in this room. This is what you do every day if you own a small business. You sort of have to be industrious in that way. And what we want to do is provide you with the information, provide you with the resources where we have them to help publicize what you're going to do. And that, I think, is one of the most important things in ways that we can truly, instead of me waving my hands and saying this is a statewide event, in order to create statewide economic benefit, it's going to be because one of you decides that you're going to do something that is particularly targeted towards the number of folks, the types of folks, the languages spoken that will be in our community in 2026. We already said this, but again, my boss, if he were here, what he would say is like, it's kind of uninteresting to make sure that we run the games well. That's going to happen. We know how, we have the Seahawks, we know how to run a full stadium. The more interesting, the more important thing is how do we use that event, again, to make an impact locally that lasts well beyond the final whistle. One thing to note, we also did get word that there's an event confusingly called the FIFA Club World Cup in 2025, which also is going to have 6 matches in Seattle at Lumen Field next summer. That is not the same thing as the World Cup. So it'll be big, but it won't be World Cup big. It'll be more like Seahawks game big. There'll be 6 extra Seahawks games, basically, with big soccer clubs coming, but they are not the same event. Really, 50% of you in here are like, I don't really care what you have to say, but can you tell me about how to get tickets? If you want to know about how to get tickets, you can use that QR code. You can register. I cannot attest what FIFA may or may not do with your information when you enter it to be apprised of when tickets become available, but that's the best thing you can do. The other thing we are telling folks is there are a lot of sort of secondary market ticket sellers out there right now who will say they have tickets. They don't have tickets. Nobody has tickets. So, caveat emptor, buyer beware if you choose to engage with one of those companies. All right. What questions, comments, what would be useful for you to know?
Ferries. Will they be running? Will we have them?
So the question was ferries, will they be running, will we have them? I can't answer that conclusively. I will say that we are in conversation generally with the Department of Transportation. They're being super helpful, cooperative. I think nobody probably wants them to be running more than them. But I can't tell you the answer other than that they are very well aware of the event and that they, I think, are inclined to be helpful. I'm also aware that there are other jurisdictions that create ferries and can move folks around, and so we're really excited to also make sure that people understand that there's a county ferry system, for example, and then the commissioner mentioned to me a name that I won't utter out loud about the possibility even of like private boat service being available to folks. Boats and Uber, if you combine those two, you get the word that the commissioner shared. Please.
Yeah, what are the hoops to jump through to get your local business on the app you were mentioning earlier, and is there a cost?
There will not be a cost. The app that we're going to put together is by necessity going to be somewhat limited in terms of how many businesses we can feature. So we'll be working with the local destination marketing organizations, DMOs and AEOs, to help identify either the businesses or the clusters of business or the sort of neighborhoods or areas that we're going to highlight in that app. We are going to be using the availability of merchandise or tickets or the ability to at least compete for those as the sort of real world incentives to get people to go to the places where the app highlights, and Pokemon Go is sort of the model, although it won't be quite that cartoonish. This is a place where we intend to test that system next summer, and then we'll actually start using the app about 100 days out, and that's what I mean by temporally expanding the period of benefit. So for the folks that are in there, the locations that are in there, it'll be free. We're not trying to make money, we're a nonprofit. Our goal is to get the business out there. What I cannot guarantee is exactly which businesses will be selected, and we're going to be working with the sort of aggregating entities like this one in the various places that we're trying to highlight. Please.
Last question. Sorry, it's you, so congratulations.
I support about 250 local community volunteers who often run small businesses. Do you have some kind of infographic or support that I can send out to them so they know how to find you?
Yeah, so you're how to find volunteer opportunities or just how
No,
to?
just how to connect about what you're presenting about, how to get connected with your app, how to get all of those businesses that support Olympic College connected with you.
If anybody goes to the website, which is the top one there, there's a opportunities tab there, and there's actually the ability to register online a specific business that is interested in partnering with us. So that's the best way to make sure that you enter the database that we're compiling. We're not doing anything with that other than being able to then turn around and provide opportunities, volunteer opportunities. So I think that's the best place to go. And then you can always email me to leof@c26r2026.org. And I'm happy to quarterback that.
All right, let's give Leo a round of applause. Thanks, Leo.